Part 6. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 51. About 10 minutes later, Suluo came to me in a panic. She grabbed my arm and begged, "Lusu. She's here again. Please help me. Please help me." I was stunned for a moment. She. Could it be the ghost mother? Looking at Suluo's panicked and frightened eyes, I knew I had guessed it right. I looked at Su Tianxian, wanting to ask for her opinion. Su Tianxian glanced at Suluo indifferently and said, "Every injustice has its own owner, and every debt has its own owner. The consequences will be whatever you sow the cause. Just go." Suluo looked at Su Tianxian blankly, and then looked at me with pleading eyes. She knew that Su Tianxian would not work here, so she could only plead to me, "Lusu, please, help me. You can do anything you want me to do. Do you remember what I told you before? As long as you save me, you can do it now." I know what Suluo is referring to. It's just that you can come to her at any time. In the beginning, without Su Tianxian's advice, I would not have helped her. Now that Su Tianxian has said that he will not help her, I certainly will not help her deal with the ghost mother. "You go," I said. After hearing these words, Suluo's face turned pale. She stood there blankly for a few seconds, and then looked at me. Her eyes changed at this moment, from pleading and helpless at the beginning to vicious and vicious. "Lusu, just wait for me, I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost." After that, he left. I feel a little baffled. It's not that I want to kill you. What's the use of hating me so much? Su Tianxian stood up and said, "It's time for us to leave." After that, Su Tianxian stood up and was about to leave. Ruoheng and I quickly followed her. After walking out of the hotel, Su Tianxian was not in a hurry to return to Jiyuntang, but instead looked around. Finally, she set her sights on the bench not far away. I followed Su Tianxian's gaze and saw a beautiful figure sitting on the bench. Judging from the silhouette, it should be the girl who was having a wedding. Her shoulders kept shaking, and she seemed to be crying. When she is there, you ask her about the strange things that happened at home, and then ask for her contact information. I was stunned for a moment, asking me to ask for her contact information? Without waiting for me to ask questions, Su Tianxian turned around and said to Ruoheng, "Follow me, I have something to tell you." Ruoheng nodded, and the two of them left under my watch. I came to the girl, and the bright moonlight shone on her body. At this moment, her hair was messy and she was sobbing softly. When she heard someone coming, she slowly raised her head. Under the moonlight, the girl's eyes were filled with tears, and she looked pitiful and lovable. "Is there anything you need?" The girl wiped her tears and asked. I'm at a loss for words. How should I answer? You can't just say I'm here to get your contact information, right? I believe what you just said. After much deliberation, only this answer can lead to the next topic. The girl looked at me with wide eyes, and then burst into tears. They didn't believe me. I went to the police and said I had no evidence, but I really saw that woman kill my sister. Because of my words, the girl lowered her guard against me a little. At this moment, she must be feeling sad and helpless in her heart. Witnessing his sister being murdered, he wanted to seek justice for her, but was unable to do so. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 52. I can understand the girl's mood at this moment. I have experienced the pain of losing a loved one. I hesitated and sat next to her. Su Tianxian said that this girl has such a close connection with Qingyang Evil Star, and if you want to find Qingyang Evil Star, you must start with this girl. Sorry, there is no resurrection after death. Every wrongdoer has a debtor, and she will definitely receive retribution. After hearing this, the girl shrugged her nose, nodded, and said, "Thank you for trusting me. I looked into the girl's tearful eyes and asked, "What kind of person is your sister?" The girl was stunned, then lowered her head and told me about her sister. From the girl's narration, I learned that the ghost mother was a very kind and virtuous woman who loved her husband deeply. Wang Lin is Guimu's ex-husband. He was originally just a poor boy. But the girl's family was prominent, so he stepped in on her. At first, Wang Lin was sensible and filial. The girl's parents valued him very much and even gave him the management of their family's property. In order to obtain the property in a reasonable manner, Wang Lin teamed up with Sulugo to kill the girl's sister. As for how Sulugo met Wang Lin, in fact, it is not difficult to guess that Sulugo was greedy for vanity, so she fell in love with Wang Lin and used her young body to seduce Wang Lin. As a result, the two hit it off. I just don't know how this matter came to be known to the girl in front of me. When the girl came to her parents, she said that Wang Lin was the one who killed her sister. Unexpectedly, the girl's parents chose to believe Wang Lin. This made the girl despair. I don't blame my parents for not believing in me. I just blame that beast for pretending so well. In my parents' minds, he would never do such a thing. Hearing this, I nodded and asked, "Has anything strange happened to your home recently?" "Weird thing?" The girl looked at me with some confusion and thought for a moment, as if she had thought of something terrible. "If you say so, there is one thing that is strange. My grandfather seems to have come to life." The girl told me the general situation. Recently, her dead grandfather has been wandering around the old house every night. My grandfather told us before he died that we must move his grave after his death, otherwise something would happen to our family. I was about to continue asking, but at this moment, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw a red figure standing on the road opposite. I was stunned for a moment, and looked intently. I saw the figure standing under the street light. The dim street light shone on her body, and I saw what she looked like. "It's Sulugo." "How did she appear where?" Seeing that I was silent, the girl followed my gaze and looked over there. When she saw it was Sulugo, she could no longer suppress the anger in her heart and ran towards Sulugo. I quickly grabbed the girl and said, "Don't go. No. I must avenge my sister." As she spoke, she began to struggle to free herself from my hands. I held her tightly to prevent her from rushing out. "Calm down. Look carefully. She has no shadow." As soon as these words came out, the girl was stunned on the spot. Suddenly, bursts of screams erupted from the hotel behind me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 53. What happened in the hotel? I listened carefully and seemed to hear someone say he was dead. Who died? I looked at Sulugo standing under the street lamp. Sulugo's face turned pale, and she stared at me with a pair of vicious eyes, which made me feel cold. There was indeed no shadow of her under the streetlight. Could it be that the person who died was really Sulugo? Thinking of this, my heart can no longer calm down. The girl on the side obviously noticed something strange. Her delicate body was shaking non-stop. She subconsciously hugged my arm out of fear. It's impossible to ask for contact information. What's more important right now than getting her out of here? Come with me. Saying that, I quickly pulled the girl and ran towards Ji Yuntang. Before leaving, I glanced at Sulugo under the street lamp. Sulugo's red wedding dress looked particularly eye-catching in the darkness. When I looked at her, she looked at me. The corners of her mouth raised slightly, giving me a weird smile. I quickly turned around and accelerated my pace, praying in my heart that nothing would happen along the way. Fortunately, nothing strange happened when the two of us arrived at Ji Yuntang. Pushing open the door of Ji Yuntang, I saw Su Tianqian and Ruo Hong sitting in front of the 8 immortals table. Master. It's not good. Suluo seems to be dead. When Su Tianqian heard this, the expression on his face did not change at all, as if he had expected it. Come in first and then talk. I closed the door and stood side by side in front of Su Tianqian with the girl. Su Tianqian glanced at the girl, and then looked at me doubtfully. I quickly explained, I saw Suluo on the road. I was afraid that something would happen to her, so I brought her back with me. When she heard the word Suluo, the girl's delicate body trembled, she lowered her head and asked weakly, is she really dead? Su Tianqian hummed softly. The girl didn't believe it at first, but thinking about what just happened, she stopped talking. The girl's mood is broken at this moment, and I can understand her feelings. Although her sister's great revenge was avenged, there is no resurrection after death. Ruo Hong saw the girl squatting on the ground crying and quickly stepped forward to comfort her. Under Ruo Hong's comfort, the girl's mood gradually calmed down. I poured her a glass of water and said, this is my master. You can talk to her about your family matters. The girl looked at Su Tianqian, startled for a moment, and then looked at Su Tianqian carefully. She asked tentatively, are you Master Tianqian? Su Tianqian nodded. The girl was a little surprised. She knew Su Tianxuan's name, but how could someone like Su Tianqian take the initiative to help her? Su Tianqian seemed to have read through the girl's thoughts, and she explained, don't worry, I won't harm you. The girl nodded after hearing this, and then told Su Tianqian in detail about the haunting in her home. I listened on the sidelines and learned that the girl's name was Xia 11. After hearing this, Su Tianqian frowned and said, if I'm not wrong, the ancestral grave in your home must have been tampered with. So, I'll go with you tomorrow. After hearing this, Xia 11 said with some surprise, Master Tianqian, are you really willing to help me? Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 54. Su Tianqian stood up, nodded towards Xia 11 and said, you can rest assured that I, Su Tianqian, will do what I say. After that, Su Tianqian walked up to the second floor. Seeing this, Ruo Hong said from the side, okay, I'll leave first. I looked at Ruo Hong and asked curiously, what did you and my master talk about just now? Ruo Hong thought for a moment, smiled at me, and said, I can only tell you that I was also involved in this matter. Are you involved in this matter? I suddenly remembered Ruo Hong singing for Wang Lin's family. Su Tianqian said that Ruo Hong sang opera to eliminate the resentment of the ghost mother. Could it be directly related to this incident? Ruo Hong refused to say anything, so I didn't continue to ask. After Ruo Hong left, Xia 11 was afraid because she had seen Suluo under the street lamp before, and did not dare to leave alone. I could only wait with her at the door until her mother came to pick her up. The next day, the first thing I did when I got up was make breakfast. Su Tianqian and I had just finished breakfast, and I got the definite news that Suluo was really dead. Thinking of the hateful look she looked at me last night, I felt a little scared in my heart. At this time, Xia 11 knocked on the door of Ji Yuntang with an old man. After Xia 11's introduction, I found out that this old man was her second grandfather. Master Tianqian, I will trouble you about my ancestral grave. Grandpa Xia 11's attitude was very humble. Su Tianqian nodded, looked at me and said, hold the compass, this time I will personally explain to you the art of Feng Shui. What she taught me was not limited to reading divination. Su Tianqian would also personally teach me knowledge in other fields. I found the compass and followed Su Tianqian. The car drove out of the city and into the mountains. It took about 30 minutes to drive in the mountains before reaching its destination. When I came to the Xia family's ancestral tomb, I looked around. The mountains and rivers here are beautiful and the environment is very beautiful. I don't know much about Feng Shui, but I can tell that this is a good place to bury someone. But I found that Su Tianxuan's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled instantly. Xia 11's second grandfather pointed to a tombstone and said, "Master Tianxian, that is my brother's tomb." Su Tianxian came to the tombstone and asked me to take out the compass. I handed the compass to her. "Lu Su, come here." When I came to Su Tianxian, she looked into the distance and said, "Have you also read the Feng Shui book on the second floor? There are many rooms on the second floor of Ji Yuntang. One room is filled with ancient books about Feng Shui, fortune telling, and of course, getting rid of evil spirits. What puzzles me the most is why there is still a secret technique in Longhu Mountain. Apart from the ancient books, there are also some things in other rooms that I can't understand. One of the rooms has a picture of the 10 palaces of Yama hanging on the wall. I always feel eerie every time I see that painting. Looked at it? Can you tell me something about the Xia family's ancestral graves?" I looked around, then looked at the compass, thought for a while and said, "The Xia family's ancestral tomb is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with pleasant scenery. There is a mountain behind, a green dragon on the left, a white tiger on the right, and the winding water. This place must be the same Feng Shui treasure cave." After hearing this, Su Tianxian nodded with satisfaction and said, "You are right, but you overlooked one point." "Overlooked something?" I continued to look around, but I couldn't figure out what I had overlooked. When Su Tianxian saw this, he said to me, "You missed one point, and this point is also the real reason why the Xia family has experienced great changes." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 55. Missed a little? I frowned and couldn't think of anything else. Seeing this, Su Tianxian reminded, "You forgot about Mingtang." I suddenly realized that there is a mountain and a bright hall in front of me. Only in this way can the tomb store the wind and gather energy, so that the living can be blessed and rich, and be extremely rich. The vast ocean can accommodate thousands of horses, and the future generations can travel thousands of miles and have endless blessings. Usually such acupuncture points are also called acupuncture points for gathering qi and brightening wealth. Most of the places where Mingtang is located are temples and other buildings. Only in this way can the effect of gathering qi and Mingke be maximized. Su Tianxian pointed to something not far away and said, "That's where the Mingtang is, let's go take a look." I nodded and walked with Su Tianxian in the direction she pointed. When we arrived at the location of Mingtang, we did not see a temple, but a century-old tree. There was no grass growing around the ancient tree, and all 7 or 8 big trees were withered. Only this ancient tree was full of green. "Master, why did this place become like this?" I asked confused. "This is Qingyang entering the killing situation. It seems that we are in the right place this time." Su Tianxian turned around and asked Xia 11, "Your Xia family has been plotted against." Xia 11's second grandfather said in disbelief, "Have you been tricked?" Su Tianxian nodded and continued, "Qingyang's entry into the killing situation is a must-kill situation. Your sister's death and your father's illness are inseparable from Qingyang's entry into the killing situation. The person who plotted against your family is very clever. According to this method, if he thinks about it, your whole family will die. The reason why only your sister is dead now means that person is still planning." Xia 11's grandfather quickly asked, "What's the solution to this situation?" Su Tianxian nodded, but she did not elaborate on the method. Then she looked at Xia 11, who was not far away, and asked, "Let me ask you something." Grandpa Xia 11 replied, "Master Tianxian, please ask." Su Tianxian asked, "Did the old man encounter any strange things during his lifetime?" Hearing these words, the second son of the Xia family fell into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head and said, "I don't know. My brother rarely tells us anything about him." Su Tianxian nodded, and then said to Xia 11, "Follow me." I need your help with something. Xia 11 nodded repeatedly and followed Su Tianxian. After we left the Xia family's ancestral tomb, we did not return to Jiyuntang, but to Ruoheng's theater. Ruoheng quickly welcomed us in. Su Tianxian told us the reason why we came here. If you want to know how to solve Qin Jiang's murderous situation, you must fundamentally solve this matter. Your grandfather is already dead, and his soul is probably not in the underworld, so you need to go into the soul to ask about your grandfather. Enter the soul? Xia 11 looked at Su Tianxian in confusion. Su Tianxian explained to Xia 11, entering the soul means that the soul enters the underworld and asks about your grandfather like a lonely ghost. When she heard that her soul was about to enter the underworld, Xia 11's face instantly turned pale. But don't worry, Ruoheng will go down in your place. When I heard this, I was slightly startled. Why should Ruoheng go down instead of Xia 11? Why not Su Tianxian? I asked the doubts in my heart, and Su Tianxian explained, if I go down with her, the lonely ghosts will not dare to approach me. I suddenly realized that with Su Tianxian's strength, those lonely ghosts would definitely run away like crazy after seeing her. Where could they come up to talk to her? However, I am still confused. Why didn't Su Tianxian choose me? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanba. Chapter 56. Su Tianxian seemed to have read my thoughts and said, I have arranged other things for you. After hearing this, I calmed down. Since there are other things for me to do, I don't need to worry about entering the soul. You have to wait until night to enter the soul. While waiting, I also learned why Su Tianxian did not choose to do these things in Jiyuntang. The reputation of Jiyuntang is equal to that of Su Tianxian. Those monsters also dare not approach, otherwise it will have no effect. Soon it was evening. Su Tianxian asked Ruoheng to prepare a sumptuous dinner with incense and wine. Then he asked Xia 11 and Ruoheng to lie on the bed, and then took out a red rope and tied their wrists together. Xia 11 looked very nervous while lying on the bed. After all, the matter of entering the soul is unknown to her. People will feel fear when facing unknown things or people or objects. I have been to that place, so I know how scary it is. As a result, I couldn't help but start to worry about Ruoheng. Ruoheng smiled at Xia 11, and then held Xia 11's hand tightly. Sister, don't worry. You just need to take a nap, it's nothing. If you want to go down and find out about the old man of the Xia family, you must have someone close to him by blood. Xia 11 is definitely the first choice, but people close to her by blood only act as a mediator in this process. The person who really went down was Ruoheng. Su Tianxian handed 3 sticks of incense to Ruoheng. There are 3 people and 4 ghosts. These 3 sticks of incense are the key to Ruoheng's downfall. It's equivalent to buying road money. In fact, I can see that Ruoheng is also a little nervous. It must be her first time doing this kind of thing. But she has been singing ghost plays all year round, and her mental quality has long been better than that of ordinary people. Su Tianxian lit 3 sticks of incense, and just when he was about to recite the soul-entering curse, he saw Ruoheng looking at Su Tianxian pitifully, and asked weakly, Master Tianxian, will you protect me? I couldn't help but smile when I saw this. One second I was comforting others, and the next second I was begging others to comfort me. Her character is really not worthy of her royal sister appearance. Do not worry. Su Tianxian said. After hearing Su Tianxian's words, she closed her eyes with peace of mind. Then, Su Tianxian began to recite the soul-entering mantra. The room was filled with smoke, and Su Tianxian's voice came softly, which made me feel a little drowsy. Just when I was about to fall asleep, Su Tianxian's voice stopped suddenly, and I woke up suddenly. The hypnotic effect of this soul-entering spell is simply too strong, right? Looking at the two women on the bed, their eyes were closed and their breathing was even. It was obvious that they had fallen into sleep. Su Tianqian looked at me and said, Ruo Hong may not be able to search for useful information, so I asked you to stay in the outer room and ask the ghosts in the past about Mr. Xia. I nodded and asked, Master, how do you know that the lonely ghost here will know about Mr. Xia? Su Tianqian replied, the origin of the evil star Qingyang has appeared in the world. You and Zhusha have such inextricable connections. People or things related to the evil star Qingyang will take the initiative to find them. So this is why I ask you to wait. The reason for being outside. I nodded and instantly understood what Su Tianqian meant. Su Tianqian continued, okay, you can only do the next thing. I will help you only when your life is threatened. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanba. Chapter 57. I can understand Su Tianxuan's good intentions. She also wanted me to grow, after all, I couldn't stay under her wings forever. I came to the outhouse, lit the incense on the table and waited quietly. It was so quiet that it made people feel nervous. The door was wide open, and the night was as dark as a black hole, with no light visible. But fortunately the dim light from the candle on the table brought me some comfort. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly there was a ringing sound in my ears. I sat up straight in an instant and looked at the door warily. What just rang was the bell hanging on the doorframe. The bell rings, which means something is coming in. The dark wind howled, blowing the candles flickering on and off. After the dark wind roared for a while, the surroundings fell into calm again. Is that thing gone? I was very surprised. A strange uneasiness spread in my heart. At this moment, the candle flame suddenly started to beat, and the dim candle flame was turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. This red color is as dazzling as blood. I stared at the candle light, not daring to move. At this time, I was able to confirm the cause of my uneasy mood just now. The change of candle light also means that what comes is very profound. Suddenly, a bright red figure flashed before my eyes in the darkness. I was shocked. What is that? Then a dark wind poured in from outside the door, making me unable to open my eyes. The surrounding temperature dropped sharply, making me shiver instinctively. When the cold wind subsided, I slowly opened my eyes, and the scene in front of me scared me out of my mind. I saw a woman wearing a red wedding dress standing quietly in front of me. My eyes slowly moved up, and I screamed when I saw her face. Ah! It turned out to be Suluo. She was still wearing the red wedding dress she had worn when she got married, and her whole body exuded an eerie aura. Her face was pale, and she stared at me with a pair of spiteful eyes. Why, don't you help me? Suluo spoke slowly, her voice cold and bone-chilling, hitting her bones. I didn't answer her. Why didn't I help her? It's just out of my heart, even if Su Tianqian didn't stop me, I wouldn't help her. It's natural to pay debts and pay for life. At this moment, Suluo disappeared instantly, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of me. I was shocked. Suluo had only been dead for a day, how could she become so powerful? She was clearly the one who harmed Xia 11's sister. How could she be so resentful in the end? Before I could react, Suluo pinched my neck with her cold and icy hands. Then he lifted me up with one hand. A sneer raised at the corner of her mouth, and the vicious look in her eyes became more intense. I begged you so much. You are still indifferent. I will let you die today. The huge force on my neck made it difficult for me to breathe, and my neck felt like it was about to be strangled. Just when I felt like I couldn't hold on any longer, my survival instinct made me use up all my strength and gather all my strength in the palm of my right hand. The arc of electricity flashed in my palm. I raised my palm and hit Suluo firmly on the forehead. Ah! Sulugo felt pain and loosened her grip on my hand. I took this opportunity to hide aside, and after I distanced myself from Sulugo, I gasped for air. Yes, I am now able to use the 9 levels of thunder technique. Although it is only the first level, this is a great improvement for me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 58. As early as when Sulugo appeared in front of me, I began to secretly recite the 9 layers of thunder spell in my heart. When she lifted me up with one hand, I had already formed the seal with my right hand. I knew that Sulugo appeared here just to kill me. So I didn't say any nonsense to her. Sulugo covered her head and screamed in pain on the ground. Her voice was so shrill and harsh that it made my scalp numb. She struggled to stand up, her entire face already scorched by my lightning strikes. The black skin mixed with bright red blood looked very terrifying. Lusu. I'm going to kill you. Kill you. I kept backing away. I knew that my 9-level thunder technique was still immature, and it was unrealistic to eliminate the evil ghost with such deep resentment in Sulugo. Now my only trump cards are Ghost Seal and Bloody Hand. I will not use Bloody Hands unless absolutely necessary. Because this will bring backlash to Su Tianxian. Then I can only use Ghost Seal. Just when I was about to activate the Ghost Seal, there was a strong wind outside the door, and the candles in the room instantly changed from blood red to deep red. Something more powerful is coming. Sulugo originally seemed to attack me, but her movements stopped. Her body was trembling non-stop. She looked around in a panic, her figure flashed and disappeared instantly. Sulugo's disappearance did not let me breathe a sigh of relief. Because Sulugo was scared away by another powerful thing. The dull sound of footsteps rang in my ears, and I felt like I was breathing continuously with every step I took. Slowly stepping into the room with one foot, I leaned against the wall and stared in the direction of the door without blinking. When the thing outside walked in, I was stunned. The other party was also stunned. Their eyes met, big eyes staring at small eyes. Come on people. Wrong. It shouldn't be said to be a human being, but rather a ghost. The ghost who came turned out to be Xiang Yi. Seeing my panic, Xiang Yi was filled with doubts and asked, "What are you doing?" I breathed a long sigh of relief, and the next moment my legs went weak and I collapsed to the ground. Since it is Xiang Yi, there is nothing to be afraid of. After all, I am his agent in the human world. Xiang Yi glanced at the delicacies on the table, then looked at me, and asked, "You are causing trouble again. Why is Su Tianxian looking at you?" I stood up from the ground with difficulty and said, "Master Xiang, I am not causing trouble, I really have something." Xiang Yi sat at the table and glanced at me lightly. "If I hadn't been on duty tonight, you would have been in trouble. Do you know what the consequences would be?" Xiang Yi is right. If he hadn't appeared, I would have been in trouble, and I might have been killed by Sulugo. What consequences? Xiang Yi picked up the chopsticks on the table and said, "You will attract the resentful ghosts. It will be a trivial matter to tear you apart. If it is serious, it will even eat your soul." So serious? If you think about it carefully, what I did was to attract ghosts to find out about the old man of the Xia family. Xiang Yi glanced at the room behind me and obviously hesitated. "Pour the wine," Xiang Yi suddenly said to me. I quickly picked up the wine on the table and poured him a glass. Then Xiang Yi grabbed the braised chicken on the table and started eating and drinking. The corners of my mouth twitched slightly. Don't all the workers in this underworld have enough to eat? Is the treatment in the underworld so bad? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 59. Pour the wine. I quickly poured wine for Xiang Yi. In less than 5 minutes, Xiang Yi swept away all the delicacies on the table. He looked at me and asked, "Tell me, what do you want to know?" "This is the rule. After eating what I prepared, you must answer my questions." I said, "Master Xiang, I want to know about Xia Jingming." Xia Jingming is Xia 11's grandfather's name. As a ghost servant, Xiang Yi comes into contact with countless ghosts every day. It's impossible for him to remember every one of them. But Xia Jingming was entangled with the evil star Qingyang. If Xiang Yi really encountered him, how could he forget it? When Xiang Yi heard the word Xia Jingming, he was slightly startled. He looked at me and asked, "Why are you asking about him?" I was overjoyed. There was indeed something going on. I said with some surprise, "This is related to my life, and I hope Mr. Xiang can tell me something." Xiang Yi looked at me deeply, stood up, and said, "This is a matter of secrets, I can't say too much." "Is it a matter of secrets? Is it possible that things related to Juxing Zisha cannot be said?" This also explains why Qingxiu Tianqian went to great lengths to inquire about Xia Jingming. I can only tell you one thing. It is difficult to paint the heart when painting skin and bones. Xiang Yi left after saying these words. Is it difficult to paint the heart when painting skin and bones? With such a meaningless statement, how can I find clues about Qingyang evil star? At this moment, Ruohong's scream suddenly came from the back room. I rushed in and saw Ruohong sitting on the bed with a face full of horror. She was breathing heavily, her white forehead was covered with cold sweat, and her eyes that were originally full of spirit were now replaced by fear. Ruohong turned her head stiffly and looked at Su Tianqian, feeling aggrieved. She stretched out her hands and hugged Su Tianxian's slender waist tightly. "Master Tianqian. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I would be dead." Su Tianqian patted Ruohong's back to express comfort. It was at this time that Xia 11 slowly opened her eyes. She rubbed her groggy eyes and looked at Ruohong in confusion. Ruohong's grievance went away as quickly as it came, and she returned to her usual expression within a minute. Seeing that Ruohong's emotions had calmed down, Su Tianqian asked, "What happened to you?" When Ruohong heard this, her face turned pale again, as if she had thought of something terrible. I didn't meet a wandering soul after I went down. Just when I was searching aimlessly, a vicious and ferocious monster with a blue face and fangs suddenly appeared." Su Tianqian frowned slightly, looked at me, and asked, "What did you find out?" I told Su Tianqian what had just happened in the outer room. When she heard that I could use the 9 layers of thunder, she was slightly startled, and her eyes looked at me with a little admiration. This is the first time I saw such a look in Su Tianxian's eyes. In the past, Su Tianxian's eyes were like a cold pool, cold, quiet and plain. I continued, "Master Xiang only told me one sentence, it is difficult to paint the heart with painting skin." Su Tianqian nodded and said, "I probably know what's going on." "Do you know what's going on?" Although I was curious, I didn't ask. Because I know that if Su Tianqian wants to say something, she will definitely tell me. If she doesn't want to tell me, she won't tell me no matter how much I ask. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 60. In the final analysis, you still need to solve this matter. Su Tianqian looked at me and said, "This is your life, you need to break it yourself, and I can only remind you from the side. My life is in my own hands. If I want to avoid a dead end, I have to break it myself. I am very satisfied that Su Tianqian can teach me my skills. At the very least, I am no longer the person who is helpless when faced with evil spirits. Before the Xia family moves the grave, you need to open the coffin and take a look. However, I will not participate in the process of moving the grave. You can only rely on yourself." I listened and nodded. In order to avoid long nights and many dreams, Su Tianqian planned to open the coffin and move the grave tonight. After hearing this, Xia 11 contacted her family. Afterwards, the four of us went to the Xia family's ancestral grave. Tonight, with the bright moon in the sky, the mountains and fields are silent, and the insects are chirping, it all seems so peaceful. But I couldn't feel happy at all. Because the coffin will be opened later at night. The Xia family had already arrived when we arrived. They gathered around the grave of the Xia family old man and whispered. Seeing Su Tianqian coming, they all closed their mouths. The people from the Xia family were all strong young men, and it seemed they were all hired coffin bearers. Su Tianqian came to the coffin and said, "Let's dig the grave." After hearing this, several strong young men quickly took out their shovels and started digging the grave. Soon, the soil was almost dug out, and at this moment, a touch of blood red came into my eyes. What is that? A coffin? I looked carefully and could clearly see streaks of blood mist billowing out of the soil. I was shocked and shouted to the man digging the grave, "Get out of there quickly." Everyone also saw something strange happening in the grave pit. Everyone rolled and crawled to distance themselves from the grave pit. From this angle, I can clearly see the changes taking place inside the grave. The red blood mist was churning continuously, just like boiling water. This scene looked extremely scary. I know what this red mist is. After a person dies, there will be a breath of bad breath stuck in the throat, which is the poisonous breath accumulated in the person's life. This breath will float out at a specific moment, fall in a certain direction, stick to flowers and plants, and they will wither. If it sticks to someone, there is a risk of death. The most common evil spirit is green, but there are other colors as well. For example, the blood red gas coming out of the coffin now. This makes me a little confused. Is it possible that there was no disaster when the Xia family master died? Didn't you exhale your last breath? Su Tianqian came to me, took out a talisman from his pocket, and said, "Go and seal the calamity." I looked at Su Tianqian blankly. If I get even a tiny bit of this anger, my life will be at risk. Although I was scared, I still took the talisman and approached the grave. The calamity has spread outside the grave pit and is spreading towards us. What Su Tianqian taught me was not only the 9 layers of thunder art, but also how to use various talismans, including drawing talismans. What I hold in my hand is the evil suppressing talisman.